Tonight, join us for part 2 of the 22nd episode as we bring you more of our favorite conversations here on the Conversations with Kai Mann show. Tonight's sponsor is Focus One Entertainment, where bringing your vision to light is our number one focus. Focus, the state or quality of having or producing clear definition. Focus One Entertainment is the premier videography company in the Midwest. We specialize in weddings, corporate events, documentaries, sporting events, and films. Regardless of the scope or budget, we approach every project the same way, by capturing and clearly defining your vision. Contact us at 313-444-3638 or www.focusoneNtertainment.com.
It was Friday, June 24th, when my producer Lenderrick and I were driving from the west side to the east side of Detroit, trying to find the home of one Omari King Wise Bardsdale. I met Omari during the filming of Ready, Set, Flow, and I was intrigued. I began researching him and reading his posts on Facebook. Omari instantly became one of my favorite people, as I personally dubbed him as the masculine voice for femininity.
Consistently,
his bold and blatant conversation from rape to misogyny made me want to invade his world and explore his thoughts. Here, listen to this, and you'll understand why the need to talk with King Wise.
Now, I think you are the masculine voice for femininity. I think that just watching you and the things that you do, I appreciate you in this female body that I uphold. I appreciate you and the things that you are saying and doing, and you are saying and doing a lot in the community. The one thing that you talk a lot about is rape, and how it's not the woman's fault, and how we give all these different excuses as to why it happened. How do men start to look at things differently, start to look at rape differently?
Well, first off, and I say this often, and it may even sound cliche at this point, but it only sounds cliche because it's so simple. A woman doesn't rape herself. A woman doesn't abuse herself. This is something that a man does to her. When it's a male-female scenario, this is what a man does to her. So this means that it's his issue. So what she is a victim and eventual survivor, hopefully. She survives the situation, so she becomes a survivor of his issues. Because the reason why he's raping, the reason why he's abusive, is because issues that he hasn't resolved or that he is not capable of understanding within himself. And the social training that he ingested that helped him to push himself over the edge to becoming, a predator. So there's a woman's clothing does not talk. It doesn't reach out and grab you and pull you in. It doesn't text you and say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z to me. There's no rape-proof clothing. If it was, Macy's would carry it, Target would carry it, a whole lot of companies would really, really profit off it. There's no rape-proof clothing. And because there's no rape-proof clothing and a woman's clothing does not have the characteristics to speak and touch and reach out and grab, then obviously this starts with him. Mm-hmm. So this means that he is the only person to blame. We try to teach women in our society to not be raped, but we almost never try to teach men not to rape women. So as long as we're in a position of not addressing the origin of the problem, what we have is addressing the people who are being victimized by the symptoms.
I have never heard a man speak out for women with regards to rape and be honest about misogyny at the same time. When I asked Omari, what does a healthy man look like? This was his response.
So what does a healthy male or healthy masculinity look like? What does that look like?
Okay. And that would probably take a much longer segment than we have today, but I'll just start with a very simple baseline. A healthy man and healthy masculinity, generally speaking, for society, does not require the diminishing of women in order to feel strong and feel balanced and feel secure. So we don't have to tear women down in order to feel like we're standing strong within ourselves. It doesn't alienate women from decision making, from emotions that are interconnected. It doesn't teach young men to go out in the world and conquer women, and we tell the young women to avoid young men that want to conquer women at the same time. It's just not, it can't coexist. And what we get is what we see now. A healthy man is a man that resolves his control issues, and or at least consciously works every day towards resolving those issues. So a healthy man is a man that looks at the things that are negative, that he does and he contributes to, that negatively impacts women and girls and other men, and starts to work on those specific things to try to, like I said, you know, they say it takes as long to break a habit as it takes to make a habit. But if you take a long time starting to break those habits, you'll never get around to it. So we have to start to break our masculine addictions, which include things like control issues, needing to be the king of the mountain, you know, the alpha male complex, and things like this, calling women outside their names, instead of learning to specifically identify the problem you have specifically with that individual woman. You call out her name, and your problem is she was dishonest to you. Just call her this. Just say she was dishonest to you, and it bothered you.
Omari even shares his own faults, but also speaks to the spectrum of masculinity and the varying genders between male and female. I love the way he breaks it down in this next clip.
This is the Conversations with Kai Mann show. I am Kai Mann. Welcome back. We are still sitting here and talking with Omari Barksdale, and we're talking about masculinity. We're talking about some privileges that masculinity holds. But what a lot of times we really don't talk about is how we get to that point of thinking that men should be one specific sort of way. Can you talk about some of the characteristics or some of the scenarios that happen to make men feel that they are either superior, that they cannot, that they have to be a certain way? What defines masculinity for them?
Well, you know, there's this invisible handbook called the Man Code, right? There have been commercials made that talk about this Man Code. It's been mentioned in movies. This mythological book, you know, that maybe somebody has actually written by now, but didn't really exist throughout the ages. In our conversations amongst men, we are not honest, and we would never honestly discuss our conversations amongst men. In fact, according to the Man Code, I am violating the Man Code right now by even saying this. So when we sit in locker rooms are full of bullying and joking at the expense of the person that is deemed the weakest. You know, sometimes it is an even exchange, but oftentimes these jokes refer to the person who's on the horrible end of the joke as something that is either woman or homosexual. So the joke is homophobic, the joke is misogynistic or sexist, So how do I diminish another man? I make him appear to be feminine. I make him appear to be same gender loving. And this gets everybody laughing. Almost no other joke in the locker room works. These jokes are very, very, very redundant. So when you watch television, boys are taught to like a certain type of cartoon. Girls are taught to like a certain different type of cartoon. We're taught to like two different colors. We basically are taught that we are on two different spaces in the universe, but that we must converge to create more children that can continue to separate the gender. And then we're not even really honest with genders, because there are a whole lot of different genders. There's not just two genders. There's not just male and female. There are varying degrees of gender even within males and females. So, and that doesn't even speak to anything sexual necessarily. So we're being taught that we're two different hardline genders and that we have to live in two different spaces. Men are taught to like big trucks, action movies, steak and potatoes, blue, very feminine women, all of these things. And if this is what you genuinely and naturally like without a bunch of other influences, that's cool. Unfortunately, what happens is we don't genuinely come to these understandings. We don't genuinely come to these likes and dislikes. In fact, they're beat out of us, sometimes physically, sometimes verbally. You can't play with that girl's toy. A father will admonish his son for that and sometimes beat him for it. So it is just like training animals in the wild to be exactly what you want them to be. And we perpetuate this on, and the more individual you are, the less acceptable you are. When it should really just be the other way around. So we want clones to continue the clone race.
On a roll now and loving these conversations. And on Tuesday, June 7th, I sit down with Kimberly Batchelor Davis. We talk postpartum depression.
You and I talked before, and you told me a little bit of your story. And I really want to elaborate a little bit more on here, because here we talk about transformation and people, their lives are being transformed. And we talk about some of the things that we have gone through so that we can help other people heal or move into different spaces that they need to move into. Okay. You spoke with me and you told me when you were a new mother that you suffered from postpartum depression. First, tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, postpartum depression is a diagnosis that typically women feel the blues. They call them the baby blues, but they're a little bit more than just baby blues. It's more than just being sad. It could be anger, it could be resentment, it could be a fear of leaving the house, not really engaging in things that you used to do prior to becoming a mom. And it's very close to what typically would be considered the traditional diagnosis for depression. Typically when you see people withdraw or they start giving away their things, people become alarmed. For me, I just didn't want to be a mom. And I struggled with that, and I tried to share with people, and I sort of got this pushback. Oh, that's a horrible thing, you shouldn't say that, that's wrong. But I didn't know how else to tell people what I was feeling. And so what ended up happening is I stopped talking about it. And those feelings continued to escalate. They continued to build. The resentment towards my husband grew. The resentment towards my children grew. I am an impatient person, and it became worse. And being a mom, you're always on, always. And in my line of work, being an event planner or someone who's involved in political campaigns or who manages projects, they're sort of, you have a timeline where you know there's an event that's happening, and you know you need to do X, Y, and Z. You need to show up, you need to make sure volunteers are there, you need to make sure the stage is set, the program happens, and all these people speak. But you know that if you started your program at 9, that at 6 o'clock your program is going to end. And motherhood, it never ends. And I lost my mother in 2010. My husband's grandmother died 2009. His grandfather died the following year in 2011. And my father had already died in 2006. So all of a sudden, there was no family. There was no the support system that people traditionally turn to, where you have grandparents and you have aunts and uncles. And friends that I had, we all have to work. So it wasn't like I could call someone and say, hey, can you come over and babysit, because they were in a conference in Vegas, or somebody else had a Bible study they were conducting, like one of my sisters at church had a Bible study or something on a Friday. So there was never any time for me. And so my voice was stifled. And all I kept hearing were the voices of my children, the voices of my husband, what everybody else needed. But it was never, and it sounds selfish because people say, oh, well, you're a mom, you're supposed to care about your kids, you're supposed to care about your husband. You're not supposed to care about yourself, but you are. And that's sort of the oxymoron that goes with that when you become a mom, you sort of become this, what's the word that I want to say? You sort of become this inanimate object because you're just a mother. And your sole purpose is to take care of everyone.
Learning the difficulties with being a new mom and caring for elderly parents, we were able to hear how Kimberly healed from that and how she and her family are doing well now. Our next conversation was on Tuesday, June 21st with Bree Nicole J., radio personality and founder of Inside the Girls Room. I was introduced to this young lady a year before when she was an intern on my internet radio show, LGBT Radio Nation.
I met this young lady over a year ago while I was hosting a show on urbannationradio.com, and she was interning. She was so busy trying to help me with my show. That whole day was kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. But I love the fact that you were very dedicated to what it was that you were doing. You didn't flinch. You didn't like, oh my God, you know, what's going on, this crazy show, what's going on? But you did not. You held your own. And ever since then, I've really been watching you. I've watched you on Instagram. I've watched you on Facebook. And the whole amazing thing about you is that you're so authentic.
Wow.
You really talk about your life with your audience. How easy or how hard is that?
I think once diving into my core of who I was, it became easy because we all go through so many different issues. And social media, you know, we try to hide a lot of those issues, but it's life, you know, we all go through life. And if I can be relatable to my audience, I feel like that brings people into me, and I can also dive into who people are as well. So
amazing, amazing. I told you guys, she's amazing.
Bree shares with us her experience with domestic violence, but she's also honest about things she did as well that might have contributed to her experience.
I remember on Facebook, I do believe, or either Instagram, one of them, you posted some pictures of, I don't know if they were actual pictures of you being abused. Mm-hmm. Were they actual photos? Or?
I did a photo shoot. No, they were not actual pictures of me being abused. But to share a story, I was dating a guy back in high school. Crazy now, we are like kind of friends. Mm-hmm. Now he moved all the way to Texas, but we went through a lot of up and downs in our relationship, and like there came a point where he actually threw a bottle at me. Wow. And the relationship got physical and abusive. And I think being as teens and young adults, you don't really know how to really voice your concerns about a relationship. Like, I was never taught about healthy relationships, and because I didn't deal with the root of my childhood issues, I didn't know how to pursue a healthy relationship. And because of that, like I said, you know, that's why I kept getting in and out of these just emotionally damaging and physically damaging relationships. So yeah, we broke up my freshman year in college. And yeah, once I healed from that, we talked about it. We talked about, you know, our relationship and some things that hurt both of us, because I did some emotionally damaging things to him as well, which we don't talk about as women, how sometimes we can hit below the belt when it comes to things. So I don't want to blame everything on him. As humans, we have to recognize where we are at fault sometimes, while also, you know, recognizing that, hey, this is not okay on both parts.
Right.
So
I told you guys she's amazing. I told you guys she is amazing.
It was a rainy Wednesday in September, the 28th to be exact. We sat down with Calvin Thompson in his family home, and we talked about mental health. Calvin is no stranger to the topic of mental health, personally and professionally.
I am one who have had my struggles, my challenges, and my story is your story as well. I know that I've been through a lot, and so have a lot of people, but my job is to help you not just go through it and don't be stuck within yourself. Being a person who has experienced an emotional breakdown 40 years ago, and having come through that storm, now it's my time to give back and assist others who are going through this storm. A great minister told me something that resonates through my mind. He said that God will put you in a situation, bring you out of it, then put you back in that situation to help others. That is my assignment.
Wow.
To help others.
Wow. That's beautiful. A lot of people, when we go through certain things in life, they find it hard to kind of not only come out of it, but once they do, to absolutely share that information with other people. How hard has it been for you to share that information with other people?
Well, it's been hard to share it up to a point, because I've been the recipient of mental health services, but I've also been a servant to extend mental health services to countless others. My first episode occurred 40 years ago, back in 1976, when I was 21 years old. But God brought me out of that situation. I had another episode 3 years later, but I was determined to prevail with myself. And one thing that I discovered in the process, that I went from a country club setting to a state facility in that interim, and going through from a country club setting to a state facility, you found out that my situation, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I just had to do what I had to do.
Right.
You know, the biggest thing that you realize about having mental health is that you have to flow with it instead of being oppositional to it. It's a situation, you can't be City Hall. You have to be humbled by the situation as opposed to being humiliated. And I think that's the biggest thing that individuals have to contend with, is that how do you deal with having mental illness? First of all, you flow with it and you grow with it, you know, as opposed to trying to not being compliant, rejecting yourself, and rejecting others' assistance that they extend to you. But if you flow with it, it tends to do better.
Yeah.
In some mental health cases, there are instances where the mind has to transcend old thought patterns and ways of thinking. Listen in as Calvin talks about mind renewal.
You talk about in your book the renewing of the mind.
Yes.
Talk to us about what that really means, to renew your mind.
Well, in more concise terms, the title it comes from a scripture: "Be not conformed to the world, but transformed by the renewal of your mind." Essentially, it means that you're focusing more on things that will accentuate you or liberate you from the seemingly quagmire you're in. You're stuck within yourself, because when you're into the worldly orientation, that may not be sufficient for you to resolve your issues alone. You must incorporate something within you, or use skills that you have to keep yourself where you need to be. When it comes to feeling depressed, discouraged, or diseased, those are a state of mind. But when you come into awareness that you can resolve those issues through talking about it, discussing, sharing. That's where the psychosocial aspect of your being has to be utilized. Your spirituality. You must go to yourself and understand just how dynamic you can be. The Bible talks about letting this mind be in you that is also in Christ Jesus, who being a form of God, not consider robbery to be equal with God. In part, we must understand that we have greatness inside of us that is yearning to be expressed. But if you allow yourself to be consumed with your problems, your distress, your dis-ease, and depression, you won't get there. So you must focus on things that will enrich you. That's why you have to have a different mindset. Like they say, nothing can be changed at the same level of thinking they created. You must go to another level within your thinking, another level within yourself.
Well, that I totally understand everything that you are saying, but for the person who finds it hard when they're depressed or going through life's issues, what can we share with them to help them change their thought process so that their minds can be renewed, so to speak?
Well, we're dealing with a concept that they call spiritual psychology. That's in which you incorporate your spiritual qualities and your thought processes to help you, assist you on your journey. You must realize and recognize that there's parts of you that are yearning to express itself. That's when it comes to a renewed mind. That's when it comes to, as the Bible says, peace be still and know that there is a God within you. You must realize that you have the ability to overcome yourself. But first of all, that's why there's important to talk about things, to discuss your feelings. And I think a lot of times the person's trying to be all tough and like, I can resolve this alone. Sometimes you need help. Sometimes you're in quicksand and you don't know that you're trying to make a move, you're trying to resolve an issue, but you must allow yourself to be privy to something else. And that's where the psychology comes in. You must have somebody that you sit down and talk to, like a dear friend. Somebody that you're willing to share yourself and your experiences with and say, well, okay, now this is what's really going on with me. And I know sometimes in our community we have an aversion to dealing with people that are outside the ministry or outside what appears to be the spiritual realm, but you must use both skills.
Okay. One of the things that I've dealt with was depression. Feelings of sadness and loneliness from what I used to have. Most of us feel depressed at times. That's normal. But when it lasts more than 2 weeks and it begins to interfere with your daily activities like work, school, or taking care of the kids, that's when you should talk to a professional. 3 to 5% of most people suffer from depression. It wasn't until I addressed what was going on inside of me, and instead of suppressing it, that my life changed. Talk to someone. You matter. Join the movement. #GetNaked.
Tuesday, December 20th, my producer and I head to Southville, Michigan, where we bridge the gap one more time and sit down with poet, author, and motivational speaker Dom LeRae. Dom LeRae has a new book called A Million Heartbreaks, where she talks about some of the experiences she grows through, like molestation and living with a mother who was on drugs and being open about her life.
I know that you have these different platforms that you are working towards. You have Respect My Privacy. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Respect My Privacy is a nonprofit organization that I actually started back in 2006. And the goal of it was to provide child molestation awareness to inner city youth and adults, because statistically speaking, that's where it's most prevalent in poverty-stricken neighborhoods. And so that's where my main focus is. So with Respect My Privacy, it's really personal for me because I was a victim of child molestation. So it's to cause conversations within families, because sometimes the abuser is a cross-generational abuser, you know what I mean? So with Respect My Privacy is basically to to open up that conversation, to have that dialogue, is to provide the victim with a platform to be able to break the silence, you know what I mean? And also to be able to give them a safe haven where they can openly talk about it, to discuss it, and to heal from it. So that's pretty much what Respect My Privacy is.
Now tell us, you kind of spoke on it a little bit. And I know that your book, A Million Heartbreaks, is along the lines of that very same platform. What made you be so open about what has happened to you?
What made me be so open about it was because I kept seeing it happen after I got older. You know what I mean? So when my nephew was abused, and when I found out that it was still happening in my family, it became like this burning sensation inside of me. And I thought that I had buried all of them until an incident, as I wrote in the book, the incident with the uncle triggered the memories, and they started to all resurface and they started flooding back. One of the things that catapulted the motive behind even having the courage to go ahead and write it is because I felt like if I did not write this book, or if I didn't tell this story, that I was just as guilty as the person who did it to me. You know, if you keep it a secret, if you cover it up, if you ignore it, you don't talk about it, you're just as guilty. So, and it became like this condemnation in my soul, you know what I mean? Like where it was chasing me down. And in 2011, my aunt, she was 46 years old, and 3 months before she passed away, she and I spent a lot of time together, and she was very open and transparent with me about things that happened to her in her life with child molestation, and she was still dealing with it at 46 years old. So that let me know that it was real, and that a lot of people don't get over it, you know what I mean? And she and I talked about it, and come to find out, we were abused by the same person.
Wow.
And I asked her, I said, why didn't we talk about this a long time ago? And her answer was the same as my answer, is because I thought it was just happening to me.
Wow.
You know, you hear so many people, you hear people say that, because that's what I thought, you know. I'm like, well, if I'm taking all of the abuse, then he's not touching my little sisters. But then I start this movement of child molestation, and I find out that my little sisters were molested. So me keeping it a secret all those years were in vain. So that's the motive behind Respect My Privacy, is to say, hey, just because you feel like you're taking in all of this, and you know I'm gonna sacrifice myself so that he doesn't touch my little cousin, or he doesn't touch my sister, but he's still touching them because it's a sickness, you know what I mean? So with that being said, that's the goal with Respect My Privacy is, you know, and people, when I talk about it, like, well, that's really huge, you know. Yeah, I know it's huge, you know what I mean? And you know, hey, I feel like I'm David, and I got 3 rocks to throw.
All right.
You feel me?
All right.
So you know what I mean? Even if I can stop 1, 2, 3 children down the road from having to experience what I experienced, then I feel like none of this was in vain.
Next, we go to a conversation taped on Monday, September 19th, with a local home care worker who spoke at the Democratic National Convention, Henrietta Ivy. Henrietta opens up to us about her past life and why she wants to share her story. And we are back. This is the Conversations with Kai Mann show. I'm your host, Kai Mann, and today we are sitting here and we are talking with Henrietta Ivy. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
I've been wanting to do this conversation, so it's a must needs, because I think as women, and as you know, we're going into different spaces. We need to be able to share certain stories. And during the break, you and I were talking about a story, and pretty much the story is your life, about some things being hard for you. Share a little bit with us about, you know, that hardness or that struggle that you've had to go through.
Oh my God, where do I begin? I you know, heartache, disappointment, depression. Almost wanted to commit suicide. A lot of stuff that people didn't know about me, because I hid it, and I hid it so well. depression came from, growing up and seeing the world so beautiful, and then had to come back to my world of struggle. Again, not saying that my parent was bad, but there were struggles there. And those struggles were, sometimes the lights were off. Sometimes there was no food. Sometimes I had to go to school with just a coat on from 2 years ago, but it was all we had. And having to deal with it as a child, and then growing up and thinking, okay, I'm grown now and I can make my own path, and I fall into some really desperate things. Like, I got married right out of high school, thinking that was going to solve my problem. I married this wonderful man. He was a good man. We had 4 children together. Didn't work out. Ended up divorced. So depression kicks in. Like, Lord, where do I go from here? I done broke up my family. How are my children going to feel about me, not knowing that they don't have mom and daddy in the same house no more, and they're used to that? That was depressing for me, but I wore it all with a smile. But it was killing me on the inside. One day, my kids were at school, and I decided, you know what, Lord, I got an insurance policy. They'll be fine. So how do I make it look good enough where they'll pay it out? And I contemplated suicide. Attempted it. And my daughter came home, and I was asleep with the bag over my head.
Wow.
And that was the most hurtful thing that my heart had to witness, that my child pulling the bag off my face. Mama, what are you doing? And I just told you, I couldn't even find the words. I have to make up a story to tell her. Oh, Mama fell asleep. I was putting some clothes in. I just fell asleep. But the tape. Mm-hmm. Thank God she wasn't, I guess, old enough to understand the tape around the bag, and she just tore it open. That woke me up. I had a bigger purpose. Because if God wanted me to die that day, or if it was meant for me to be dead that day, I would have been dead. Because I made sure that I was going to be out of here. And when I saw the look in my child's face, I had to fight every grain in me for every struggle I have gone through, that I am going through, and that I have been through. I had to continue to fight. It ain't been easy, Kai. It has not been easy. Being a black woman, a single black woman, raised 4 children. Society viewed it as that's what we're supposed to be. And I was trying to kill that stigma. Getting in and out of relationships, trying to prove to the world I can have a man. When I'm thinking, Henrietta, it's not even about that. You got to start with you. You got to dig so deep in your pain and bring up all that, because I got a purpose for you. And the world's going to have to see it one day. And that was back then, because as I mentioned earlier, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have even had this conversation. To me, it was more embarrassing than it was necessary. Mm-hmm. Now it's necessary, because now I know too many women that have gone through it and that are going through it, and I'm like, let me tell you, I got a story for you. You can get past it. Right. You can make decisions no matter what age. I'm 50, so I wouldn't have thought. I'm figuring 50, I'm gonna have my little retirement somewhere. I got 10 more years to go. I'll be good. But I'm starting a whole new path. I'm fighting a whole new fight, and I don't think I would have done it had I had not grown.
Thank you for watching some of our favorite episodes of the Conversations with Kai Mann show. We appreciate that you take the time and energy to watch our show every Wednesday. Good night.